what should media literacy look like?
I don't mind media even if it's peripheral, as long as it is introduced in schools. The source of news, has become right from WhatsApp to social media platforms to whatever is there on the internet, which cannot be completely verified.
Yeah.
Print journalism, the readership has gone down.
How do you think this understanding of journalism, where there are three sides, which you said, which is one, yours, mine, and the truth?
In journalism, like we said, in fact, in journalism, it's not even me. It's just you and the truth, because it's like the most basic principle and truth of journalism, that you cannot write any story which is one-sided.
In your journey, ma'am, in the 25 years or journey that you've had, you've been in the journalism space, and you've been in a magazine, and then you've been in a leading daily. How do you see yourself evolve in this entire journey, the next 20-25 years of Bharat, and what would you think education in that time should really look like for the changing times, with AI coming in, with so much technology coming in? Where do you see things going, and what schools should be really working on? Welcome to Building Bharat. This is the second episode of Building Bharat that we are shooting with an amazing person today, Sunanda Mehta ma'am. And Sunanda Mehta is a leading journalist, is a resident editor for Indian Express, and she's had an amazing career over 25 years. Welcome, ma'am, on Building Bharat.
Thank you so much.
It is such a pleasure to have you on Building Bharat, understanding your perspective of how India should learn and grow, and the next generation of Indians, how should they be growing? Let me start with my first question. Your journey has been through various ages of journalism, and you've seen the growth of India and the development of India through headlines. And how do you see that growth? Where do you see Bharat today? And how have you seen that journey evolving over time?
You mean in the field of media and journalism, or education?
Yes, both, absolutely.
Yeah. Well, of course, there's a huge change from when I started. And I started from really those era when my first article, I think I typed it out on the typewriter. I still have that Remington typewriter with me. And, for everything we had to go and research. I always tell all the journalism students where I go that we would come to the office, and on the newspaper, there'd be something either circled, or the editor would just write a name and leave it over there, say V.K. Murthy. And you had no idea. You didn't know whether V.K. Murthy has won the Nobel Prize, or V.K. Murthy is a criminal on the run, or V.K. Murthy has passed away. So you just had to go and read everything and get your background. And today it happens in, 10 seconds on the Google.
Yeah.
So that's the journey which has taken place in journalism, as in every other field. So the change is huge. But with that, with information coming at on your fingertips, it has also come with more responsibility. Media, I think, has come a lot under the scrutiny just because of information being so easily available. The credibility of media, I think, is at an all-time. It's been questioned the most right now. So I think what has changed is, of course, gathering news has become easier. Verifying that news and giving a credible output and making sure what you're putting out is absolutely correct has become tougher.
Yeah. And, this tells me, like, when we work with children in schools, children are also bombarded with a lot of information.
Yes, right.
And how would you advise to, school leaders, principals, what should media literacy look like? Should it be like a subject like mathematics or English in today's times, or how should we educate children to be able to choose, which is the right news and which is the right piece of information to be consumed?
Yeah, first, I don't think it needs to be put on the same same importance as science and English and mathematics. Clearly those are subjects for schooling that they are much more important. And media can be one of the various other subjects which either are taught or as a co-curricular activities, or as some of the clubs and all they have. So I don't mind media even if it's peripheral, as long as it is introduced in schools. In most schools it doesn't happen. It's still the rote learning, the examination, the very traditional form of curriculum which is continuing. Of course, with the new education policy, a lot of things might change. It's a very, very good document, but it must be implemented properly.
Yeah.
But I think a very easy way to start is to just introduce newspapers in school. I mean, I had gone to one high school once to talk, and I asked them, how many of you read news every day? So a few hands went up, maybe half the class. And I said, how many of you get it through newspapers? And all the hands went down.
Yeah.
Because the source of news, has become right from WhatsApp to social media platforms to whatever is there on the internet, which cannot be completely verified.
Yeah.
So fine, I mean, they can of course go on news media sites, which is verified news. But I think just introducing a newspaper to them, tell them the importance of what is black and white and why there is such a gray area that they need to navigate would go a long way. And plus introducing at later classes, which we used to have, in fact, bringing out your own magazines and newspapers. So that will right from the beginning give them the skill of how to sift, the fact from the misinformation which is there. There's this whole noise which is obliterating the news part of it. So I think right from the beginning, make them very familiar with newspapers and let them know what the whole concept of fake news and how they cannot, and very importantly, give them the responsibility of not forwarding anything that comes to them on their mobiles, and showing them examples on how such forwards could lead to such grave consequences and how it is such a disservice they will do as grown-up adults in the world. So all these can be part of, say, even once a week, a certain class on understanding the media, understanding the world around you would help a great deal. And the best would also be to call maybe some journalists to the classroom, get the classroom to newspaper offices, which we've had many times, and just get them very comfortable with the whole concept of news, so they're not daunted by it, but they take it as a part of their learning.
Something very interesting you said about that they don't forward something which they cannot verify, or that's happening, and it is one of like the many reasons for a lot of riots and various things across the world today. Today's Gen Z also, they don't absolutely relate to the newspaper. They see it as something completely different from a different era or a different world. So how do you see news and media evolving to adapt to their needs and their preferences? Because they are an Instagram or a TikTok generation,
Yeah, so in fact, that was one of the points. That forwarding is also like that instant gratification, or being first with being able to tell people, which is a part of this culture. But yeah, I agree. Print journalism, the readership has gone down, though you'd be surprised. No, it is still very much there. It is still very popular. In fact, we've just redesigned, our own newspaper, the Indian Express. And there was a question that, at a time when print journalism is not as popular as online, we would spend so much money and effort and time on the redesigning of a physical newspaper. But that is only because of the feedback we got from people. Because people have also started believing a newspaper more because, for the simple reason that you get more time to put the news in the newspaper. If something breaks at about, say, 3 a.m. in the morning, it's all over online. We also put it on our sites, so we are very cautious how we put it. But in the newspaper, you get the entire day, not just to verify the news, but to get both sides of the story, which is so important. And that is what I also teach journalism students or schools, a few basic principles of journalism, that every story has two sides. In fact, it has three sides. It's your mind and the truth.
Right.
So they have to take time and arrive at that truth. So while print journalism may not be as popular with the Gen Z, I can tell you it is still very popular because of the credibility which it carries. And it is so much responsibility because online you can change things, but there you cannot. Once it appears in black and white, it's like the cardinal truth.
Absolutely.
So, so that is why there is much more effort which goes into it. But I won't say that the Gen Z should all also start reading newspapers, as long as they are going on verified sites. They are going on newspaper sites to get the information rather than what we said, forwards and the WhatsApp university.
I'm going to dig you deeper on the you, me, and the truth. I would love to understand more about, because a lot of times when we teach history or when we have certain chapters in our history textbooks, there's always one side that comes out, right? So how do you think this understanding of journalism, where there are three sides, which you said, which is one, yours, mine, and the truth. How do you think that can really boil down to education, schools, and how can children benefit from it?
So actually, I would like to, also sort of put it parallel to just the how children need to evolve as human beings, how school has such an important role to play. Like in journalism, like we said, in fact, in journalism, it's not even me. It's just you and the truth. Because I mean, it's like the most basic principle and truth of journalism, that you cannot write any story which is one-sided. You have to get the the other version also. Even if there's someone who's accused, and you have to go and talk to the accused, of course, provided he's not already arrested. But if there is any kind of allegation, you have to get the other party's version in. And I think that is also how larger life is. Life is, and children need to know that whatever they are thinking, what they believe in, is not the cardinal truth. There is always the other side of a story. So they need to have the space to accept all thoughts, all beliefs. Nowadays, things have become so much cast in stone. It is this kind of independence of thought, of speech, is, we are saying, it's not as much as it used to be at one time. So children need to know that everyone has a point of view, and everyone's point of view has to be respected, which is the basic foundation of not democracy, but also the society. So I think that is what they can learn from journalism, that journalism will never give you one point of view, except for the opinion and the editorial page, which is called op-ed, which it's very clearly written, these are the opinions of the writers. But everything else which appears in the newspaper is something which has got both the viewpoints there in every report. And that is what I think children should be taught right from the beginning, that you have to accept the two sides of a story. And most stories have, if not three, definitely two sides. I think it's just that even when they're taught like history, I mean, we hear so much of, history being changed and newer concepts being introduced. But I think they need to just read more and more about a certain subject to get viewpoints. I mean, and in history, it's always like that. I mean, I did my history honors. And I remember, at least in the college level, we had to just get the dissenting voices also in for anything we wrote. Because history also is open to interpretation. And we always had to write, all the interpretations there of an event or of a ruler or of a dynasty. If you wrote just one, the scoring would be very low.
It's always good to get to the sources and the primary sources. And
yes, as far as possible, get to the premise and just read a bit more on that. I mean, journalism teaches you that you just get more and more references. For what you are, whatever you're writing, it has to be given a right context. And in schools also, that's what everything has to come with the right context. And if there are things which are ambiguous, it's controversial, you have to just give all the controversies and allow the students to read everything and in a way make up their own minds, rather being told that this is what happened and this was how it was.
So something very interesting you shared about, reading up more. And I think with reading up more, a lot of questioning also comes in.
Yes.
And that is an inherent trait of a journalist, is to question. Right. And what do you think education today can really take from that, about the art of questioning?
I think one of the biggest things you can take from that is this, because in school, only the teachers question. Every school is the teachers who are asking the questions and the children are only answering. And usually at the end of the lesson, you'll have a teacher saying, have you all understood? And there is a chorus which says, yes, ma'am. I think that has to stop right away. Children should really, really be encouraged to ask questions. I mean, you see it everywhere. If you go to a talk and then when the questions are thrown open to the audience, you'll find this first, a deathly silence, because no one wants to stand up and ask a question. Because somehow you've been told, and maybe this is what you've experienced, that if you ask a question and you ask a question which is not the most intelligent question, you will look stupid, you will be laughed upon. I think that is one thing, somehow this fear of asking questions, the fear of being either laughed at or, ridiculed should be taken away from the children right at the very early age. You should be taught that if you don't ask a question, you are definitely going to be laughed at. People are going to say, oh, you are, you can't ask a question. That means you don't want to know more. You're only accepting what people tell you. So that is the first thing you can learn from a journalist, because a journalist is, if nothing else, you ask a lot of questions. So
Absolutely.
they should be taught that everything you listen, ask a question, and even if it's the silliest question in the world, doesn't matter. As long as you're asking, that is what will make you score, brownie points
Yeah.
in a classroom. So that, yeah, definitely from a journalist, you have to learn to ask questions.
In your journey, ma'am, in the 25 years or journey that you've had, you've been in the journalism space, and you've been in a magazine, and then you've been in a leading daily. How do you see yourself evolve in this entire journey? How have you shifted roles? How have you embraced new challenges?
Actually, I started my journey in education. I don't know if you know that I did my B.Ed.
Yes.
And I taught for a year, and then I went to journalism because
Yeah.
I felt that was
Yes.
my calling in life. And I started with magazine journalism, which was, if nothing else, it was an easier pace, because you would get
Yeah.
a week or 10 days to write in your story. Unlike newspaper, which is like a daily deadline, everything is should have been done yesterday itself, and you're constantly on the go. But you've learned that with the daily news and daily journalism, it's almost like they say, it's almost history being written in a hurry.
Yeah.
That's what you are doing. You are kind of just recording what is happening in this era, and recording it for future reference. So that has kind of made you a little more. It's made life tougher, much more busy, but it's also made you more in tune with what is happening, the changes. You're trying to adapt yourself at a faster pace, and with all the new technology which has come in, we are also changing the way we write. Like earlier, a simple thing is when there were only print newspapers. So if you bought my newspaper, for me, my job was done.
Yeah.
Then whether you're reading it or not reading, much as I like you to read the entire thing, but
Yeah.
if you're reading just one story or from front page to the last, well, that's okay. It doesn't really affect me so much in the newspaper industry. But today, with all the stories being online and they're tracked, with the
How many readers?
Yeah, each story, how many views does it has, how many likes, how many shares, how much time a reader has spent on your story. So that, in a way, it's great because it just gives you instant feedback and the correct feedback.
Yeah.
And also makes you, much more conscious of the way you're writing. You can't just ramble on and on, because if a reader doesn't like in the second para, they just switch to the next story.
Yeah.
While in newspaper, the choice was limited. They would, they would, even if they read you or didn't read you wouldn't really know.
Yeah.
So you could get away with a few things, but you can't do that online. So we have to be more careful how we are writing. You have to write in a much more succinct manner, in a more interesting manner. A very fundamental principle of news used to be the pyramid structure. That everything that is most important you put in the first para, the who, why, what, where, when.
Yeah.
And then you explain it all, and the last para usually would be the least important, so that it is like like an inverted pyramid. So if there is no space, they just throw away the last few paras. It doesn't affect the story. Right now, because you want to engage the reader thoroughly, you also write in a different manner, where you want the reader to, you go on revealing a bit, right till the end, so the reader is engaged in your whole story. It doesn't just finish into the first. So these are the techniques which one has learned with the new age journalism which is there. And one has learned to, like I said, write for the audience that is there with you. If I'm writing for a newspaper, I should know my readership and then write for them. While all the important news has to be covered, if I'm going for in-depth news or I'm going for something beyond news, even features, I must know that this is what my readers are more interested in. And I will invest more of my efforts in that rather than something that doesn't concern them. Like I also teach sometimes I go to schools also and I teach them about newspapers. So very interesting experiment. I'd gone to one underprivileged school, standard 6, and I taught them this basic rule of journalism, not in my backyard. That, maybe a dead horse outside my building gate affects me more than a flood situation in Mongolia. So it is, with the news, you have to give news which affects your readers more. So I gave them a lot of situations that which news will you put first, second, third, fourth.
Interesting.
And I was amazed. All of them were great. They picked up the news which was most relatable to them, which would immediately affect them, and they made sure they gave that prominent and that news a prominent space.
Yeah.
And even if there was news which was bigger, which was there, but for them, I told them, you are the readers of this newspaper. So they learned how to do it. So these experiments also show that we need to have more faith in, students. And of course, one or two did put that there's a holiday tomorrow as the most important story of the day. But that is fine. I guess they are learning.
Yeah.
So some fundamentals remain the same. I think news consumption, because news consumption has changed, people don't have so much time. So we've just adapted the way we write news. We are, we are more crisp, we are more to the point, and we are definitely trying to be more engaging.
Yeah. You shared that, growing up, you've been in North India.
Yeah.
And I'm assuming that you've done your schooling and all of that from there. So tell us a little bit more about that part of your life, and how has that inspired you to be in the journalism space?
So, well, my father was in the army, so typically I changed a lot of schools. I think I changed 6 schools from 1st to 12th. And at that time, I never even thought that was disruptive. I think that helped me a great deal because, I studied, I think my first school was in Assam, and then I was in Allahabad, then Delhi, Ambala, Jhansi, Secunderabad, and then again back to Delhi for higher studies. But I think that just helps you to grow. It adds to your experience, and it makes you more of a people person, which is so essential for a journalist. And how it helped me also a great deal was, I think I knew right from the beginning that I loved the language. I loved writing. And I was really not cut out for mathematics and science. I had a standing arrangement with one of my classmates. I would write the essays and the classmate would do my sums, the maths homework. So very early I knew. But I could say in one school, which is what I think school teachers and school leaders need to do a lot, they were able to spot my love for the language and encourage me to, write more, to do debates and declamations, to know that I'm not going to come up with any mathematical formula, but I just might write a book someday. So that skill was honed. So I was very lucky that that was kind of spotted, and I was encouraged to do that in my school in Ambala and even later. And that helped me to, though I did do B.Ed because, my parents thought, B.Ed and coming from army background, that is something you can, as a profession, you can take in every city. But then finally, I think your calling in life, you have to listen to it. And I went on to journalism, and I've never looked back. I think it's one of the best careers you can have.
And I'm sure throughout your journey, you've done like many stories, and which are like maybe 1 or 2 stories that are on the top of your head that that really that was something that you really enjoyed doing, and that's something that changed something.
Yeah. So actually, in fact, our last line is the crux that changed something. So when we think of stories, changing things, we always think of the biggest scoops and all, how they change, which are very important. I mean, we've seen a lot of media pressure there are a lot of wrongdoings that they can stop in time. But for me, because I've also particularly been interested more in human interest stories, I think my favorite stories are those which may have just changed in individual lives, but they've changed it for the good and for the better. Well, a couple which come to my mind right away is once long back, I had, in fact, I was doing a story completely different. I was just doing whether the city of Pune is disability friendly. So while researching that, I came across this young doctor on the wheelchair, and his story was that he was an FMC topper. When he had entered, and he was doing very well. But in the final year, he had gone to visit his father, who was also in the army. And while coming back, his jeep fell down a gorge, 15 feet, and he was paralyzed waist downwards. So 6 months they tried, to help him, to make sure something could be done to his situation and treat him. But of course, he came on the wheelchair, and after 6 months, he came back to FMC to complete his course. And he did that, but he was not given the degree because FMC, being an army medical college, so they had this rule that because they were spending on the entire education, so they had the rule that if you do not join the army after you become a doctor, you will have to pay for that education. And so they said, now, unless you pay us the 3 lakhs, you will not get your doctor's degree. Now, already his father had spent a lot of money on just his treatment, and they didn't have the money. So he was working just as an assistant to some doctor elsewhere. And this was, a young man of 24, 25.
Yeah.
So I just dumped the earlier story and I just wrote his story. And I still remember there was a headline saying how this, from the wheelchair, this FMC doctor cries for help, who's fighting both disability and the establishment. And they written a lot of letters to authorities and nothing was happening. And well, it reached the Ministry of Defense, the MOD. In 3 days, he got a waiver on his fees.
Wow.
He got his medical degree. And today, that man, this must be a 20-year-old story.
Yeah.
Today, he is in Canada. He is married. He's heading, one of the branches of deep medical research over there, and he's leading a fulfilling life. So I think that story remains very close to my heart because it made a difference.
Yeah.
And another was in FTI, we got this news that one of the girls has been picked up overnight. A girl from Nepal had been picked up overnight, and she had been sent back to Nepal. And the narrative that went out when we started talking to authorities was she was a spy. It was really convenient and also fitted sometimes. So this was she was a spy, and that's why she was sent back. That is what came to us from the authorities. So when I went to FTI to get that side of the story, it was a completely different story. She'd been married to a very powerful politician in Nepal, and it was a bad marriage. It had soured, and she had but no one would let her get out of it. She kind of escaped and come here and taken admission, and she was doing her course in editing. But he used his influences, with the top, and he got the authorities to pick her up and send her back on the pretext, of telling everyone. So when I wrote the story from that point of view, and her parents, who didn't even know she'd come back, she was under house arrest there, they got to know. So of course things started moving, even the diplomatic circles, and she was rescued from her home. Wow. And then of course, they managed to free her also from the clutches of that man. And all of that, and then she finally came back. She completed a course at FTII, and she went to Bombay, and she became a film editor. And she wrote back once to me saying that whenever I count I count the angels in my life, Indian Express is right on top because they helped me. So I think if you ask me my favorite stories, they're really those which change individual lives, because also they're the changes most likely to remain. Because the bigger changes, once public memory is very short. Once you turn your eyes off any kind of a scam, any kind of a deal, and because something more important and more pertinent takes over, you never know what really happens to it finally. You cannot track it to the end.
Yeah, I can totally relate to this because 1 year back I moved to Pune, and generally when I go to a new city, I would do a heritage walk. So we did a heritage walk around the central Pune area. And right behind the Dagdu Shet temple, I saw a hound, and it was in a really bad, dilapidated condition, right in front of the police station. So we were starting Delhi Public School, Hinzewadi at that time. And my first project with the 6th graders, we took them around that place, and we told them the story behind the hound. So it was made by Professor Vishram Ghole.
Okay.
And Professor Vishram Ghole made it in his daughter's memory, Kashibai. Kashibai was poisoned by giving her a laddu with glass pieces because she was going to school. And the father's sister had done that. So Vishram Ghole built this monument in her memory. And our children went around and they revived that monument.
I think I read the story. Yes.
Yeah, and they revived that.
Yeah, I didn't know you've done this. I remember the story well. Yeah.
So it was such a powerful feeling for us, for all of us at the campus. And something so beautiful happened that Vishram Ghole's granddaughter reached out to us, saying that my husband is an IAS officer, ex-IAS officer, and I've been trying to do this for 14 years, but I could never do anything. But your children could make this change happen. So amazing. I can totally understand.
Yeah, and I remember the story. I remember it was one of those very heartwarming things that one has read. Yeah, great. Yeah.
And when we invited Sheila ma'am to the school to speak to the children were fully awed because
Yeah,
they
right,
could
because
directly relate
exactly
to that
relate to what they
entire
had done
piece.
and how it had changed. Yeah,
Yeah,
fabulous.
yeah.
Great initiative. Yeah.
Yes. So
Yeah.
since
Yes. So these stories actually, I think, are the stories that are close to any journalist's
yeah,
heart. I mean,
yeah.
we just recently, I just quickly say, we had one young journalist who went to a village where a girl had been selected to go for NASA, and discovered that that girl, I mean, no, she didn't even have a mobile, and she didn't have a laptop.
Yeah.
And they would go somewhere and take, someone's mobile to even get this news that she's been selected for NASA.
Yeah.
And she hadn't even traveled by train. So while we did the story, this young journalist came back and he took a contribution from all his friends and sent a laptop to her,
Wow.
going one step further. So I think this is what is the new evolving journalism also.
Right.
Yeah.
You've been in such an interesting space. You've done your bachelor's in education. You've been in journalism for such a long time, and you've seen India moving. You've seen India through the various headlines that you've written. And how do you see the next 20-25 years of Bharat, and how do you what would you think education in that time should really look like for the changing times, with AI coming in, with so much technology coming in? Where do you see things going, and what schools should be really working on?
Well, I think, of course, there are a lot of changes that are needed. I mean, from my time to now, anyway, the changes have come. Like I always tell a lot of people that when I was in school, the motto of my school was learn to obey. And when my son went to school, his motto was be yourself. So that itself tells a whole story of change.
Yes, absolutely.
I think in that sphere is where one needs to change more. First of all, the rote learning, all these heavy examination, the pressures, I think all of those should be minimal. You need to produce, education system needs to produce more entrepreneurs. People, well, you are going to give them academic excellence, you're going to give them academic knowledge. Most of the children are going to come out with that because that is the basic purpose of education, to equip them with knowledge. But with that, there are a lot of these softer skills that I think should be taught just as importantly as you said, science and maths, maybe not media, but the softer skills need to be there on the same platform, which include bridge building, team spirit, tolerance. Um, uh, there was someone and how to be real readers. Real leaders are not who know all the, what the MBAs have taught them or all the business strategies have taught them. Real leaders know how to get the best out of people. I was listening to one speech by one of our editors, and something struck me. He said that I have met a lot of leaders in the world across, and they all have different qualities that make them leaders. But there is one quality that each and every one of them possessed. And if they hadn't, they wouldn't have gone up to that stature, which is a large and a generous heart. Unless you have the generous heart, when you can, you can make sure everyone in your team is getting the opportunity, is coming up together, and you're not trying to take anyone's credit. All these softer skills, unless they're there, I don't think education would have completely fulfilled its role. Because, like I say, it's easy imparting knowledge, the theory, what is there in the books. They've been doing it for years, and maybe the way has changed now. Of course, the way also needs to be changed when more project-based, and less book-based, I guess. But very importantly, the soft skills must go hand in hand. A lot of counseling and mental health issues must be introduced in school itself. I think the teachers have this great responsibility of spotting out any kind of mental health issues, which has become such an epidemic in this country, especially in the younger generations. And I say in fact, they have to have the primary role in that, even more than parents, because parents can very often be in denial, of your child's whatever challenges a child might be having. I think this should be, teachers should be trained as well for that as they are for academic excellence or leadership qualities, to spot this out, to ensure counseling is there, to basically take out fear from children's mind, to have this space in which they can grow. And I can relate it again as a personal experience. I mean, I remember I was sending my son in his pre-primary to a very, very inclusive and open school. And I thought in those 3-4 years, he really blossomed. But I sent him to a very traditional school after that. And I could see the change, that spontaneity which is there, that kind of courage, which I think children need to have courage right from the very beginning, which is there. That I think was something that maybe lost out on many years. And it was much later when he came into his own, that all these qualities were imbibed, when you come to your own in a profession. But I think the school itself should impart your soft skills as much as academic excellence. And I see the crop which is going to come out now and many years to be to have entrepreneurial skills, be able to create more jobs than just to take up jobs. They need to be they need to have this very large heart when it comes to dealing with people, and they need to be bridge builders. They do not have to be bridge burners, which a lot of people tend to be in this highly competitive world that we live in. I think competition has its place, but so does inclusive growth.
Yeah, absolutely. And with the changing times, I think with a lot of technology coming in, the soft skills and able to build those bridges, like you rightly said, being more compassionate, being more empathetic,
definitely.
all of these are really, really important skills as children get into schools. And just a last couple of questions. With children generally are consumers of news.
Yes.
How do you see, is there a way that classrooms can generate can help children become producers of news rather than just consumers of news? What do you think schools can do for that?
Well, for that, I think the traditional system, which like we also experience, I think the best way would be to just train them in the business of news. Like I said, to have them bring out their own newspapers for the class, have them bring out their own magazine. And now the tools are there. The technology makes it so much easier. And very importantly, in fact, I know a lot of schools which are actually consciously teaching children the difference between fake news and real news. Very interestingly, just last week, I think there's a Max Muller Bhavan here in Pune. They actually had a game, which was the game was based on how to differentiate between real news and fake news, and it was called "Trust Me, It's a Forward," which I thought was a very sweet way of saying. So, and they had these participants from various fields. They came and they gave them situations, and then they gave them a lot of information. And the only way for them to move ahead in game was to figure out which is correct news and which is fake. And only when they could make out the correct news, they could move ahead and gain points. And it was a beautiful game for about an hour, but which gives you hands-on experience of how to navigate through this entire ocean of misinformation you are getting drowned in these days. So I think schools should introduce, break it down, simplify all these, not have this very big phrases or words, not even a word like a misinformation, but just break it down to what is real and what is the truth and what is falsehood. It's like a true and false game, but played with the newspaper headlines, which are there. We've had, in fact, one place we've actually had this exercise on taking newspaper headlines and asking them say true and false and giving them time to find out. So I think that's the best way to bring in this whole concept of new media in and tell them the challenges as well as, of course, the great advantages of being informed. I think that is one of the greatest weapons this generation has, because information is come down into your hands. So this generation is much more informed than probably mine was.
And it passes on in seconds. So,
in seconds. They're also smarter. Definitely. They know what they want in life and they know how to get it. So when you have all these advantages, they just need a little bit of guidance on, this whole thing, like I said, of a fault of, finding out the difference between a false narrative and a true one.
So thank you, Sunanda ji, for taking out time,
You're
for
welcome.
agreeing to be on this, and it was absolute pleasure to be speaking to you. And I'm sure that everybody watching this will have a lot of takeaways and a lot of insights that you've shared, that how can we encourage children and to move towards journalism. And it was like in our conversation today, when you shared that you got into a lot of debates, declamations, and all of those things really helped you become and take up journalism when you grew up. So those are some things that I would encourage every school leader to bring into their campuses. Thank you for your
Thank you
time
for
today.
having me
Yes.
on the podcast.